Hi everyone! Today I would like to talk about my journey into Muay Thai and how I started fighting. This is something that people ask me a lot. People ask me this a lot. They usually look at me, someone who doesn't typically fit into like the fighter, I guess, quote unquote, look. My friends that have known me since before I started Muay Thai, they know how much I wanted to achieve certain things academically and otherwise. So becoming a fighter was kind of like this very abrupt turn. To give you more of an idea of what I was like as a kid, I was constantly running around. My dad, he took us to the park a lot to like either, roller skate or just play on the jungle gym, things like that, just to get our energy out because we were kids. My brother and I, we loved just doing things that kept us physically active. So, my childhood was definitely full of like scraped knees and scars, falling off my bike, things like that. Grew up really close with my dad. Something that we did a lot together was watch a lot of action movies, particularly action movies with a lot of fighting scenes and things like that. So then I remember watching Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport, Kickboxer. I watched all the classic Jackie Chan movies, some of the Bruce Lee movies, Steven Seagal. 90s was like a hotbed for a lot of these movies. So then naturally at some point I like said to my parents like, oh, I want to learn how to do stuff like this, kicking and punching and all of that stuff. What I was met with was girls don't do that. And I knew that that was inherently really unfair, how they could deny me an opportunity, deny me an activity just based off the fact that I was a girl. Anyway, they put me in piano. They put my brother and I into learning Chinese on the weekends. Like we spoke Mandarin at home, but because my brother and I were raised in the US, we didn't know how to read and write it. Didn't pay attention, that's another story for another day. We took swimming classes. I started playing the clarinet when I was in the 4th grade. Band nerd. I remember I picked up the tenor saxophone for a little bit of time. All of these things I'm really grateful for, and I definitely learned so many skills along the way. And what a privilege that my parents were able to allow me to pick up so many of these extra skills. But I do remember being particularly jealous that my brother got to take a couple taekwondo classes. I was very, very jealous. Yet, as time passed on, like that innate desire of mine to want to learn how to kick and punch something, it never went away. In middle school, I was the one like chasing the boys around in the playground and low kicking their legs, and like maybe I would like jab their chest and stuff like that. And then sometimes I would like lift up my hand to like tuck my hair behind my head, and then they were flinch, which I thought was really funny back then. But now I guess I'd be a little bit concerned if if my friends now still did that. When I got to high school, I joined the handball team, I joined the track team, so I was very much an athlete and I really liked moving my body and challenging my body. And then when I got to college, the school I went to offered a lot of different fitness classes. So then there was like spin class, there was like a boot camp class, there was yoga, there was a Pilates class, and there was like a cardio kickboxing class, which you're just like punching and kicking the air and doing lunges and stuff like that. I liked the cardio kickboxing the most because it was the most intense, but also like I got to like punch and kick the air. So it was very fun for me. And I took all those classes, by the way. Around that time, because I was working part-time and I had a little bit of money saved up, I was like, oh, let me try the activities that I didn't really get to do when I was growing up, or I didn't get the opportunities to do when I was growing up. I kind of made like a little mental list of all the things I wanted to do. And then I remember I started doing CrossFit for a couple of years. Next on my list was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna learn some form of kicking, punching, and then after that I'll learn dance, right? So it was just kind of like a hobby checklist. And it just so happened that on Groupon, there was a Groupon class for like some local kickboxing classes, and I didn't know it upon joining, but then the two main instructors at the time, they were actually Muay Thai fighters. They were Muay Thai fighters, and they were teaching us what they were doing at their Muay Thai gyms. Back then, this chain didn't have, I'm not going to mention the chain, but the chain didn't have like these like standing bags. there was a lot more freedom of what you can do. So we used to like hold pads for each other, hold mitts for each other, low kick pads. And one of the instructors made us do like these crazy things for conditioning. So what I was learning was Muay Thai. I learned maybe a month or so into joining. And I remember asking, oh, why don't you guys just call it Muay Thai? And they're like, oh, well, because people don't know what it is. But if you say like kickboxing, then this is like when it started becoming a trend. I was told like if you call it kickboxing, then people are more likely to join instead of it sounding like this far off kind of dangerous, potentially dangerous thing. So I started going just once a week. I went every single Friday evening. I went to like the 7 o'clock class, and then it was a 1 hour class taught by the instructors, and they eventually added sparring classes after that Friday evening class. A few months into training, I started sticking around for sparring. And I remember the first time I sparred. Oh my God. If you've never ever been hit in the face before, it's a whole other thing, right? Like, it's so unnatural for your body to want to keep your eyes open and all those things. So the first time I sparred, I remember I couldn't keep my eyes open, and then I instinctively just like turned my body to protect myself because I didn't know what to do. And I didn't feel particularly discouraged. I was very frustrated for sure. It was like, oh, this isn't like all the things I see in the movies where it looks so easy to just like fight multiple people all at once, right? So it definitely put a lot of things in perspective. And then I remember really looking forward to Fridays because of these classes, because of these Muay Thai classes with the sparring and stuff. And then, so I started training, and then maybe 3 or 4 months in, I said to one of the instructors, like, oh, I'm thinking of possibly competing. So I still wasn't sure. I knew that it was something that might be in my future, but even then, like, it wasn't certain for me. It wasn't like this feeling of like, oh, I want to compete. It was like, maybe I'm considering it. And he told me, he's like, look, it's great you want to. You show up consistently, and you're getting better. And he told me that this isn't the place for you. Like, if you look around, these people are here just for fitness, which is fine, or just to break a sweat. Most of these people are never going to compete in their lives, no matter how good you think they might be. Because for me, as like someone who had only been training for a few months, like, what do I know about what's good and what's not, right? So then he recommended that I go to the gym that he trains at, so I can work with fighters and people who were in that kind of competitive mindset, who will push me more, which was different from the people that we were currently training with. During one of my winter breaks for school, I ended up going to train every single day. I told the owner, I was like, hey, I'm gonna be off from school for like a month. Can I change my plan temporarily so I can come in every single day? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. Are you sure you want to do that? Because you've only been training once a week. All of a sudden you want to train every day. I was like, yeah. Sign me up. So I ended up going every single day, minus Sundays. Man, it was so much fun. And I got in great shape that month. I remember going back to school and then going back to like the yoga and the boot camp classes and stuff, and just realizing how much stronger, how much fitter I got. Before I start rambling, the start of the new school year, that's when I kind of was getting myself together to like connect my school schedule with potentially joining this new gym. So because I lived in Queens, New York, and I commuted into the city, into Manhattan for school. So Queens is here and Manhattan is here. And then the Muay Thai gym was in Queens, but like at the halfway point between my house and school. So then in my head I was like, all right, let me go to school, or let me go to the city to like go to work, go to school, and then on my way back I'll train, and then I'll go home. So that's basically what I did. In the beginning, it was tough because I was still studying, and I worked a part-time job as a physical therapist aide. And I would wake up sometimes at like 5 o'clock, get out of the house by 5:30, so I can be at the physical therapist office by 7. 7 a.m. They open pretty early. work a few hours, and then maybe around noon, head over to school, take my classes until like 5 or 6, depending on the day, and then going to the gym and training for an hour and a half, 2 hours. It usually went into like the 2 hour territory, and then go home. And sometimes the training classes, they didn't start until like 8 o'clock. So then sometimes we are training from like 8 to 10, and I still had to catch the train and a bus to go back home. So I wouldn't get home sometimes until like close to midnight. And it was rough for me because of my schedule of work as well. I remember like it was something that I wanted to do so bad that at the time it was just natural that that was going to be the choice that I made. It was like, oh, of course, this is what you want. Like, you want to train here and you want to keep showing up. Like, not training it didn't even occur to me that it was an option. So I just dealt with it. If only we can maintain that like 20-year-old energy for the rest of our lives and just keep grinding like that, right? Onto the training. So then the new gym that I started training at is Seton. When I do go back to New York, I still go back there to train and hang out and see everyone, which is really cool. I remember the training classes being really hard. The standards were just way higher. The expectations were higher. The training classes were harder. At the time, I had been training for a total of maybe like 8 or 9 months, and I was getting my ass handed to me in sparring by people who were only training for like 3 months. So that really spoke to like the quality of training that existed then. It was so different to be around people who were so passionate and driven by training Muay Thai and or fighting Muay Thai. It was a different energy from the first place that I was training at. And because my goals were moving into like a competitive direction, I definitely made the right move. I just found it really fascinating how I met all these players. They worked in like high-level executive positions in their daytime jobs, and they would come to the gym and take off their shirts and get like their faces bloodied sometimes from sparring. I did think that the sparring was really hard. Not just like hard skill-wise, but also like hard. 10 months after joining the new gym, I finally got my first fight. I remember the process was really long to get the first fight. They were looking for me for a long time, like putting my name into shows. But back then, there just weren't a lot of shows, like maybe one show every 2 months, if even that. They didn't really like putting first-time fighters on the shows, and they didn't always like putting women on the shows. Promoters mainly care about ticket sales. And maybe their reasoning was we wouldn't sell tickets with like these first-time fighters that nobody knows about, etc., etc. I gave it my all during that first fight camp, my absolute all during that first fight camp. I remember the people that I spoke to the most at the gym, they were all giving me advice. I was trying to follow all their advice of like basically leaving no stone left unturned. I was so sore all the time. I was sore in places that I didn't know you can be sore. Especially like my butt slash lower back area. Like it didn't hurt, but I remember like using a foam roller because I was just chronically in pain. Obviously, looking back, there were so many things that I did wrong or could have done better, especially when it came to my nutrition and my recovery. I mean, with the skill, obviously that's just something that comes with consistency and time, but I really wish I like ate better. But also back then, like a bigger issue with my body and eating habits, maybe I thought that I know now that I wasn't. Like, I don't know how I survived fight camps on like a 900 calorie diet. I ended up winning by decision, and I was just hooked onto that whole process. You grind really hard for something, step in and you do it. And then during that process of the grinding and the stepping in, you just make all these connections. You become so close to the people that you train with, so close to the people that like beat you up or like throw you on the ground and clinch you, right? There's just this unspoken friendship in a way, which I found very, very interesting. And it's just like you see someone every day and maybe you won't even say like 10 words to them, but just the process of like them helping you and you helping them, you just become so close. So that's how it all began. Of course, there's much more to the story from my first fight to where I am now. I've been living in Thailand for 7 years now. I now have over 50 professional fights. And I've gained so many skills and knowledge since then. And I guess sometimes I'm just making this content for the me back then when I didn't know anything about anything and was just looking for like not just a good role model, but someone who did their research and was talking and was saying things from a good place and not just saying things because, oh, this is what someone else told me, this is what the coach told them, and then just like feeding the cycle of like bad information. So I'm trying to not do that. So yeah, thank you for listening. And if you'd like any more of these kind of videos or this kind of content, please let me know and hit subscribe if you haven't already.